I think that was an arranged marriage, and either she was like a handler or she was, she had political ambitions of her own. But yeah, I don't know. Look, who is Erika Kirk now? This is a person that is being foisted on us. And look, don't get me wrong. You lost your husband. I am deeply sorry for you. I really am. I'm praying for you. I am deeply sorry for you. I can't imagine what you're going through. But you becoming president of Turning Point and now being foisted upon us, that's an altogether different story. You know, it's like I said on Monday, and Alex Jones didn't like this. He said it was mean. A lot of people didn't like it. You want our sympathy? You got it. You want our prayers? You got it. People would, walk over broken glass for this widow who can even sympathize, who can even understand what she's going through right now. But they're asking us to accept her as like this new leader. They're foisting her on us.
Is Nick Fuentes finds Erika Kirk is Charlie Kirk's widow, very suspicious, criticizing her lack of emotion and believing she benefited from Charlie's assassination. Haven't even watched the video, and there's a lot to unpack here. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was a right-wing voice, and he helped the Republican Party get a lot of votes, and he was bringing excitement into the conservative movement, which tend to be seen as an older demographic. Charlie was bringing fun to the youth who also had those conservative and Republican values, and he was registering voters and getting a lot of young conservatives to start sharing their views online, as he also shared his views online. Let's see what Nick had to say about this situation. Very interesting.
Charlie and Erika, I do not believe for 1 second that they met organically. How do you think they met each other? Do you think that they bumped into each other at CPAC and Charlie said, hey, let's go on a date? No, they were set up together by somebody. Who set them up? Charlie, I'm sure, he's super ambitious, super powerful, running this organization. They told him you need a wife. I'm sure he wants a wife. They told him you need a wife. If you want to run for office, you need a wife and kids. You need a family. They're grooming him to be super powerful. So he's hanging out at Bohemian Grove, and they say, we need to give you a wife. We know somebody. We know this girl, and she's in some, how do they know her? Who set them up, and where did this girl come from that's going to be Charlie Kirk's wife and bear his children? I think that was an arranged marriage. And that tells me that she is tapped into some kind of network in some way. I don't know how. People talk about she was a pageant girl and she ran this charity. Maybe there's a connection there. I would not be surprised at all. That, if you're talking about Erika Kirk, that I believe. People say Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Let's look at the marriage. Erika Kirk is now taking over Turning Point.
Don't know where Nick's going to go, but I have always seen Nick as a conspiracy theorist. And just the opening of this kind of was him questioning how they met. I do understand that it's possible that when a person like Charlie is growing in power, if he doesn't have a wife and kids, sometimes people think that's politically advantageous to have a wife and kids. So it's possible that someone hooked them up. But also it's possible that if Charlie was a big in the influencer circles, which he was, and if she was a pageant girl, it's possible that just two known figures can be at the same parties in the same events because they have some of the ideologies or they're in similar circles. So I see what Nick is saying. It's possible, but it's also possible that they could have just come across each other from their lifestyles.
Suspicious as fuck. Because what we are being led to believe is that Erika Kirk is the archetypal trad girl. Isn't that the perception they're cultivating? When you look at some of these clips, she's supposed to be the ultimate trad wife. She's speaking at the Young Women's Leadership Summit. She's on podcasts saying, oh my gosh, I can't focus because I'm so in love with Charlie. If he's here, I can't focus. I'm so smitten. Like, that's the character that she's playing. That's the character that they're selling us. Her husband gets shot in the neck graphically in front of everybody, shouldn't Miss Tradwife, shouldn't she be like despondent? And I'm not trying to judge how people grieve. It's not our position to judge how they grieve or what their response is. Maybe she's just got unbelievable resolve. But if she really is the ultimate Tradwife who knows her place and is a helper to her husband, a helpmate, and she's so smitten with him and she's the perfect Tradwife, like how she's been presented to us for years, then when her husband gets shot in the neck and blood starts spurting everywhere in front of everybody who starts screaming and running away, shouldn't she be like in shock? Shouldn't she be like in a catatonic?
Okay, this is very interesting. So I'm noticing a few things. Some of this is about my perception of Nick. He's making a lot of sense, and I guess some of these things I have kind of thought to myself in terms of like her behavior, but it's not just animated. I guess he comes off as almost like criticizing her, and I never thought of it in a criticizing manner. I just was interested in like, okay, when Charlie died and then Charlie would no longer be the leader, I wondered, well, who would be the leader? And then Erika kind of stepped in, and I was just thinking about, okay, well, who are some of the big names in the conservative movement? I thought one of them would step in. And then I thought, would it be a moderate conservative? Would it be like someone, not Nick, but someone who's more extreme? I was just kind of wondering what would happen to TPUSA, and wondering that, I was somewhat shocked that she stepped in. So, I mean, I'm not saying she isn't grieving, and I don't necessarily think it's bad that she's stepping in, because who would know Charlie better than anyone else? It would be his wife. Who, if I were married or had a significant other, which I currently don't, who would I want to step in and run my business or take care of my affairs? I would want it to be my wife. So I can understand why his wife would step in, and I can understand how it's logical. But then I can also understand, okay, if I had just died, where would my wife's head be? I don't have a wife again, but if I had a wife or a significant other and they had just died, or somebody that I was very close to, if they had just died, where would I be in terms of my workspace? On the one end, I think that I could focus, but on the other end, I wonder if I would be in the proper headspace to say some of the things she said, such as I would forgive the shooter. I believe that I may not have the courage or the ability to keep myself composed as well as she has. So I can understand what Nick is saying. He's kind of saying, well, she's able to be composed because she doesn't care. I wouldn't say that, because that's too far of a bridge for me to jump. But I can see how Nick, and I've also seen other people online kind of question what's going on. I can piece it together. I just wouldn't jump that far, because I think that's saying a lot. She has lost the father of her children. Those are her children. She has lost the father of her children. She's lost her husband. That was her husband. So I just don't think it would be appropriate to pass judgment on somebody at this particular point without all the facts, and without knowing a plethora of other information that may be behind her decision to take over the company.
State or crying and be in a veil as a widow somewhere. But that's not what we got at all. The second he dies, she takes over Turning Point. That happened like 2 days later. She's all of a sudden the president of this $500 million organization. Super influential, now super powerful after Charlie became a martyr, and she's given speeches. She's given a speech, and the speech, I'm sorry, it's totally canned. The first speech she gave next to his empty chair, she's like doing this weird affect, wiping away tears that aren't there with this scripted speech, the battle cry of this widow, the cries of this widow will echo like a... And then at the WWE Memorial, she comes out to fireworks and she does this like she's Mary in her white suit, her makeup, her hair did. And she goes out with fireworks at her husband's fucking funeral like this. She fucking posed. Did you see that? And then she goes up and says, yeah, I'm running Turning Point now, and this is how... It's giving me like Claire Underwood vibes.
So I'm not sure if the viewers saw the House of Cards, but Claire Underwood was the wife of Kevin Spacey in House of Cards, and she had her husband killed. Now, what I'll say about Nick is normally when he has conspiracy theories, they're against Israel. And I've heard a lot of people on X discussing how they're wondering why Nick has changed his tune about Israel. Because after Charlie was killed, Nick said he didn't believe it was Israel, and now he's stating it again. But he doesn't believe it was Israel, a powerful nation who could potentially assassinate someone. But instead, he's saying it was a conspiracy to kill Charlie. But now he's trying to parse through it and say it was his wife who was behind it. So I'm not saying Israel killed Charlie. I'm not saying his wife killed Charlie. But I just find it interesting that normally Nick points to Israel for everything, and now I've noticed in a few statements that he's made, he's not quick to say anything against Israel, and he's bringing up Charlie Kirk's wife. Now, besides me noticing Nick's stance on things, I've noticed as we've done reactions on this show, we did a reaction to Nick on YouTube with Patrick Bet David, and we also did an interview with him talking to a comedian, Dave Smith. Now, Nick was banned from most platforms, so having Nick on YouTube doing those interviews was somewhat odd. And then I also came across this weekend, I saw that his podcast is on Spotify. So, not to be a conspiracy theorist myself, but there seems to be a willingness by the mainstream, not mainstream media, but the mainstream social platforms to now allow Nick Fuentes content. And it was banned. So if Nick believes it's possible that Charlie Kirk's wife was behind his murder, and he believes that it's possible that Israel is behind almost every major war or every major bit of news that affects the American people and American government, I suppose it's possible that Nick got a phone call if he's not as against Israel as he used to be, and he's being seen more on CNN. He's been seen on CNN, Iran TV. He's been seen on Spotify now and YouTube. So not saying that Nick did get the call, but it's just something that I'm wondering at the moment.
I think that was an arranged marriage. And either she was like a handler or she was, she had political ambitions of her own. But yeah, I don't know. Look, who is Erika Kirk now? This is a person that is being foisted on us. And look, don't get me wrong. You lost your husband. I am deeply sorry for you. I really am. I'm praying for you. I am deeply sorry for you. I can't imagine what you're going through. But you becoming president of Turning Point and now being foisted upon us, that's an altogether different story. You know, it's like I said on Monday, and Alex Jones didn't like this. He said it was mean. A lot of people didn't like it. You want our sympathy? You got it. You want our prayers? You got it. People would, walk over broken glass for this widow who can even sympathize, who can even understand what she's going through right now. But they're asking us to accept her as like this new leader. They're foisting her on us as a...
So this kind of explains the predicament that Nick and other conservatives and other just political commentators are in. We have to judge Turning Point after Charlie's passing, and we have to give our opinions on what's going on with Turning Point. But when the leader is the widow, you're kind of in a precocious situation. How much can you criticize someone if they've lost their husband? But how can we not state our opinion if we're looking at, as he stated, a massive $500 million organization? Before Charlie died, I was very critical of Turning Point, as I thought that some of the things that they said about the black community, some of the other races, some of the other genders, like the homosexual and transgender community, I thought some of their beliefs and values were a little harsh. And I believe they just took it too far with their narrative. So how can people continue that criticism if the person doing all the speaking and stating those points is a widow? We're kind of in a situation where we want to discuss politics, but we also have to continuously take into consideration what she's going through. So I guess it comes down to this. At what point will we look at Erika Kirk as a political figure versus looking at her as a grieving widow? And that somewhat comes down to her and what she does moving forward, but it also comes down to each individual. For me, I think I should give her a little bit more time to grieve and just find out what is going to be her role? She may be the president or she may be on the board, but there are a lot of people who talk in the conservative movement. So I'm not sure long term how long she will be the communicator and the person handling the narrative and the person that's on the front lines. So I'll just keep my comments to myself and give her more time to grieve, but also to see what the company does as a whole. And then once we find out, then I'll be more comfortable giving my opinion about not Charlie Kirk, but his wife, Erika Kirk, as well as TPUSA as a whole.
Political leader. And that I don't like. I don't like that because that's manipulative. That is predatory. She's the widow. Who can criticize her? She's a widow. Who could ever say anything negative about her? They're exploiting that. They're exploiting that. She's untouchable. She's beyond reproach. She's the victim of the tragedy. It's like when a victim of a school shooting starts running an anti-gun nonprofit. You know, it's like March for Our Lives, because who could criticize a kid that almost got killed in a school shooting? You know, it's giving me vibes. I don't like that. I don't like when some victim of some atrocity is then presented as a political figure, because it's like, okay, who the fuck are you? You're the victim of some tragedy? That sounds like a really shitty thing to say, but it's like, how do I know you're not being controlled by somebody? Because quite honestly, we knew who Charlie Kirk was and he built the organization. We have no idea who you are. What makes you qualified to run Turning Point? Because your husband got killed? What makes you qualified? We don't know anything about you. We don't know where you came from. We don't know anything about you. For all we know, you are working for some other person or now the board.
So like his points, again, they're very valid. I guess just with Nick and me personally, his statements come off like very conspiratorial. So I'm following him. Then he goes, oh, but this group may be behind you. I'm following you. And then, oh, you may be up to this. So up until he actually starts stating what the potential negative things that could be going on, I actually follow him. I guess me and him are just different. Like, I don't put a negative spin on every action. I put more of a question on every action. So why is Nick behaving how he's behaving? Why is Erika behaving how she's behaving? With Netanyahu, it's a little bit different, guys. I think he's a war criminal. But if I was being fair, I could just say, why is he behaving how he's behaving?
Is going to run it. Now some shadowy force is going to run Turning Point through you, or you represent. We don't know. We don't know who you are. But no one can say that because she's a widow. And that I don't like. Because this is a high-profile killing. It is forcing people to ask a lot of questions. And this is the one aspect of it that we're not allowed to ask questions about because it's in bad taste. Well, you know what? This is politics. If you want to speak at the funeral, no one's going to question that. But you seize control of the organization right away. I'm seizing the reins. And no one dare question me because I'm a widow.
So again, I agree with Nick here. I'm going to hold my comments, but I actually don't see anything wrong with Nick and others expressing what they believe. I actually saw Pearl Davis make a comment about how she thought Erika taking over was suspicious. And I have heard some other voices on the right, either post reels or just mentioned in tweets that they are skeptical of her behavior and of her grieving. So I don't think anyone's wrong to be questioning her already. Just me, for my personal comfort, I'm going to wait. But again, all Nick's questions are valid. Just I put an asterisk on some of his some of the things he's implying could be possible. Again, anything could be possible. So when he says something could be possible, I feel like he's putting that in your mind as a possibility to think of. And that's what I mean by put an asterisk by what he's implying. I take his questions as implying something.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. And it doesn't really track. Like I said, if you watch any of the clips, it's just like downright insulting. The way that she's presented as like a trad wife. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be, but if you're the ultimate trad wife, shouldn't you be a little bit more torn up about this? I know I sound like an asshole. Where's the tears? Really? You're a trad wife? You're a helpmate. You're smitten. You're so in love, blah, blah, blah. Your husband got publicly executed in front of all of his adoring fans 3 days ago. You're giving a speech today, taking control of Turning Point, vowing like that we're going to make Turning Point bigger than ever.
This is why I didn't want to touch on the topic, though, is because now he's commenting about how she should grieve, and I feel as though everybody grieves differently. She could break down in 6 months. She could have already broken down and got her thoughts together. Her and Charlie could have already talked about him potentially losing his life, and she may have been preparing for this longer than we did, because of a lot of influencers have been saying they've been getting death threats. So I won't say the people's names, but various people that I follow who have 200, 300, a million followers, they've been tweeting about getting death threats. And Benny Johnson, one of the big conservative influencers, recently had somebody who mailed him a letter arrested. So it's more going on than what maybe the viewer may be thinking. If these people have been getting threats for a long time, potentially they've been sharing with their family what they would like done. So I do understand totally what Nick is saying. He thinks that she should be broken up. He thinks she should be distraught. He thinks that if she's really the type of woman she's portraying people to be, like a trad wife, as he says, a traditional wife who stays at home, cooks, and takes care of the family and is not out working, because now she's in front of the public and she's somewhat like, she's not a feminist, but she's doing the work of a feminist from the standpoint of a feminist would be leading the organization. A feminist would be talking to the public. Whereas before she was in the background and doing more of the homemaking duties. So he's just saying if she really was like that, how is she now summoning up the strength to do these things? So I get the question, but it's too emotional of a topic for me to come at her at this moment. But I will definitely continue, as I said, to watch what happens with TPUSA and Erika Kirk.
Is that typical trad wife behavior? Who is this person exactly? Who is this? No one knows. So listen, and I know I don't really buy a lot of the Israel conspiracies. That is something I'm very interested in. Erika Kirk is someone I'm very interested in. You know, when people talk about energy weapons and decoy shooters and trap doors, you lose me. When you talk about the person that succeeds Charlie Kirk, that's relevant.
People have been asking me to play more of the video. I will try, but I find it ironic. All of those things he just said about trap doors and decoy shooters, these are all things that for almost a decade now he would have blamed on Israel. So it's just very odd and bizarre that he's now saying, I'm lost on all the conspiracies about Israel. That doesn't make sense to me. But this person who I know nothing about, I'm willing to believe she killed someone. You're saying you know nothing about her, but yet you're passing judgment on her and saying she might have killed someone. Whereas the entity that you've been talking about for a decade, you're saying that you don't believe they could have done what you've been predicting they would do the whole time. Just saying.
Who's going to take his place? Good question. It's the wife. Who's the wife? No one knows. So, you know, some of that stuff, the Epstein files, I don't know how much that plays into it, because Charlie was in favor of covering them up. A week after the DOJ covered up the Epstein files, Charlie Kirk went on a show and said, I trust the government. I don't want to ask any more questions about it. So I don't think that had anything to do with it. I think they just took advantage of it. But yeah, but the wife is sort of interesting. And I know I sound like a jerk. Fine. I sound like a jerk. I don't care. That's a question that needs to be answered. And she's in politics now. If she wanted to be a widow, then, she should have just started some fucking foundation and said, we're giving out the Charlie Kirk Memorial Scholarship or something. But she took control of a $500 million all-important political org that just got way more important. And, succeeding a guy that died, it's a little suspicious. So, yeah, I gave me a very bad taste in my mouth when am I the only one? I mean, tell me what you think. One's in the chat if you think I'm onto something. Two, if you think I'm a dick.
Okay, so I think this is a good place to end. Again, Nick had a lot of valid criticisms. I'm open to doing more of these if you guys like them. Again, I'm not neutral on Nick. I kind of came at him with a bias, so I'm gonna try to work on not taking digs at him. But I mean, he just opened himself up to a big dig. So he's saying that we should let him know if he's a dick. I don't know if he's a dick, but he does sound a little bit like a Mossad agent. You know, I'm not saying he is one. I'm just curious if he got the call. If you like this video, please smash the like button, comment, and subscribe. New shows airing Monday through Thursday.